As I mentioned before, this is essentially a basics course in regards or with regards to microeconomics and macroeconomic policies. And the idea is that you learn some of the core concepts that every firm and people managing those firms need to understand in order to be able to more or less pull off a successful business. So, a little bit of more information about me. If you want to contact me, that is my email. You can always send me an email. Me. A little bit more about me. At the beginning of this presentation, I told you that I am the head of LTP, which is the government undergraduate program here at Tec de Monterrey. I am also or I have a master in public policy from the University of Chicago's Harris School of Public Policy. I was there a couple of years ago. My bachelor's degrees are in political science and in economics from ITAM. Before that, and in general, when there's election cycles, I tend to be much more of a political consultant. Let me begin with the idea of this introduction to economics. And I want to ask you, what does economics explain? So economics explains many things. You can more or less get an understanding of different things of this planet or this world through an economic lens. But the first thing that economics explains is choices. People make decisions all the time regarding many different things, from ranging from what things you want to buy, from what politician you want to choose. And obviously, not all of those choices fall under the economic umbrella. But in general, if you are able to understand how people choose things, you are more or less able to understand how will they behave in an economic environment. So the first thing to understand with regards to economics are choices. Then we have incentives. And the idea of incentives is trying to understand why those people made those choices. What inclined them to make that decision? What forces are behind them deciding to buy that stuff or not deciding to buy that stuff? And the way societies behave is basically or can be modeled through the appropriate or the specific incentives that those people may have or why they don't do stuff. And I decided to place this picture of the huachicoleros. If you remember from last year, it seems like an eternity ago, but like last year, we had the gasoline crisis in Mexico. And huachicoleros are these fuel thieves that essentially, through corruption, they find with the Pemex employees and organized crime groups, they find where the different oil pipelines are located. And they essentially make leaks in them such that they can extract gasoline or some form of oil, not necessarily crude oil, but some refined petroleum product. And in general, they do that so that they can sell it in the black market to other people, to gas stations and to businesses. And it's very profitable. And because it's very profitable, this has become one of the main things that organized crime groups are doing in certain parts of the country, in particular in the Guanajuato area, in Puebla. It's something that has become a problem for the government in terms of security. And even though this is a very risky activity, and what I mean by risky is not only that you may get caught by the police and put in jail and stuff like that, but remember that last year there was a town, I don't remember if it was the Estado de Mexico, it was Puebla, where there was this leak of oil or of gasoline, and people were craving to get all of that. And they were like, the entire town was there and stuff like that. And for some reason, it caught on fire and it exploded. It killed like dozens of people. And it was a tragedy. It's really risky to do this, but people see something profitable here and see that the risk reward ratio is in their favor, and they opt to do this because they probably have no better alternative in terms of economic means, but also because you have different incentives when the government is really incapable of fulfilling their obligations and the rule of law. When you think you will not get caught in a criminal activity, it's much more likely that people will do that criminal activity. And also economics explains regulation. This is more into the side of the policy area. And it implies why the government decides to regulate and decides to create certain laws and regulations that affect all the businesses that are part of that market or are part of that industry. So regulation is key if you want to have a business, because you need to understand what are the incentives of the government or the government agents to change the laws in ways that they can affect you. If you are not basically understanding what are the incentives of the government, you may suddenly invest in a place or invest in in some form of endeavor, and suddenly find that your investment cannot be recuperated because the government decided to place a ban on those type of products. So like my point is that if these policies from the viewpoint of the government don't understand the incentives that people have to continue buying things that they like, they're not going to be very effective policies. And on the other hand, if these firms don't understand the incentives of the government and the type of regulations that they are willing to implement, then they may suffer some losses in a particular period of time or in a particular market. And they need to try to address them, adapt, and move on. So these are the things that economics explains. But the idea of why economics is important, or at least why I believe that economics is important, essentially, many of the world's greatest problems can be explained through economics, and in general, the way economic agents interact, understanding the incentives people have, the choices they make, and what type of things happen because of those choices, whether they are specific transactions, the growth, the birth, or the decay of specific markets or industries, and also the type of regulations and the type of laws and policies created or designed to try to address some of those problems. To finalize, what is the goal of this course and some of the things that we will see during the entire semester? Well, that you have an understanding that markets work in different ways, and that you understand some of the basics of how they work and why people make the choices they make, but that you get a takeaway that without competition, there is no economic growth in the long run in different societies, in different countries, and you cannot achieve prosperity, whether that is prosperity for a group of people, for a city, for a country, or just economic prosperity in terms of a successful business, if you don't understand the dynamics of how competitive markets work.